Hi everyone. So today we're going to discuss the NCRT questions of reproduction of organisms. By the way, my name is Rishika. I'm from Hansraj College. Yes. So these are the questions from your NCRT textbooks themselves, and let's just get started. All right. So the first question is, why is reproduction essential for organisms? Yeah. So the question is, why is reproduction essential for organisms? So what do you guys think? Why would reproduction be so essential for organisms? First of all, what you need to know is that reproduction reproduction is a fundamental feature of all organisms, right? So then what does reproduction mean? Reproduction is the ability of organisms to produce offsprings similar to themselves, right? So firstly, reproduction is a fundamental feature of all organisms, and reproduction is the ability of organisms to produce offspring similar to themselves, right? So how does reproduction become essential for organisms? It is because reproduction ensures continuity of organisms. So what does reproduction do? It ensures continuity of organisms. And how is this continuity ensured? It is ensured because reproduction is the ability of organisms to produce offspring. Right. So if there is no reproduction, it will lead to extinction of organisms. Okay? So if reproduction is not present, then it will lead to extinction of organisms. So if someone asks you why is reproduction essential, you will answer that person that because it ensures continuity of organisms by producing offsprings, right? Because it's a process in which offsprings are produced. And if reproduction is not present, it will gradually lead to extinction of organisms. Okay? So the first question was pretty simple. Now let's go to question number 2 of your NCRT textbook. Yes. So your next question is, which is a better mode of reproduction, sexual or asexual, and why? So question number 2, what is a better mode of reproduction, sexual or asexual? What do you guys think? Well, many of you might think that because asexual reproduction is a fast process and because it doesn't require two parents, maybe this is the reason why it becomes a better mode of reproduction. Well, it is wrong. Sexual mode of reproduction is a better mode of reproduction. Now the second part of the question is why, right? So I am saying that sexual mode of reproduction is a better mode of reproduction. But I have to give a reason for this very statement as well. So before I answer why, let me answer what do we mean by sexual reproduction. Well, sexual reproduction is a type of reproduction in which two parents are involved and produce an offspring which is not identical to the parents, which is not identical to the parents. Now the fact that the offspring which is produced is not identical to the parents questions you, why is it not identical? The reason it is not identical is because this offspring will be different, And why will it be different from the parents? Because it will have variabilities or variances or variants. It will have variances. Now, why does it have variances? The reason why the offspring has variances is because in this type of reproduction, two parents are involved. Now, because the parents were also genetically different from each other, this is why the offspring which was produced was different genetically from from both the parents, right? So it takes me back to my question that why then I call sexual mode of reproduction a better mode of reproduction. The reason for this is because of the variances in the offspring. These variances ensure adaptability of the species in the environment. Now, if the offspring will have variances, it will ensure that the species will be able to adapt itself according to the environment. And not just that, variances do not just ensure adaptability, but also it also marks evolution. Because in a way it means that the species or the offsprings are getting evolved, right? Now, because they'll get evolved, it will ensure that the species does not get extinct. Okay, so why do we call sexual reproduction a better mode of reproduction? This is why. It is because the offsprings that are produced in sexual mode of reproduction are different from their parents because they have variances. Now, these variances ensure adaptability of the species in the environment and also leads to evolution. Okay? So, wherever we find evolution and adaptability, it is understood that the species will be better fit for the environment or any damage or any type of environmental effect. Okay, so we're done with the question number 2. of your textbook. After question number 2, we have question number 3. First, let me just rub this off. Yes. So after question number 2, we have question number 3. So what is question number 3? So the question number 3 is, why is the offspring formed by asexual reproduction referred to as a clone? Well, this is a very, very important question. Why is the offspring that is produced in an asexual mode of reproduction referred to as a clone? Firstly, the offsprings that are produced in asexual reproduction Firstly, the offsprings that are produced in asexual reproduction are genetically and morphologically similar to the parents. Well, these are very important words in this very statement, that these offspring that are produced in asexual reproduction are genetically and morphologically similar to the parents. Now, how are they genetically and morphologically similar to the parents? It is because in asexual reproduction, there is only one parent required. So as you know, in sexual reproduction, because there were two parents required and because the parents themselves were genetically different from each other, that's why the offspring had variances. Whereas in this case of asexual reproduction, there is only one parent. Now, because there is only one parent, whatever this one parent produces, that offspring will be genetically and morphologically similar to the parent. Okay? Now, because of this, because the offspring becomes genetically and morphologically similar to the parent, this offspring is known as and what you call a clone. Okay? So we'll revise. Why is the offspring produced in asexual reproduction referred to as a clone? It is because the offspring that are produced in asexual reproduction are genetically and morphologically similar to the parents. It is because in asexual reproduction there is only one parent which is required, which is why the offspring becomes genetically and morphologically similar to the parent, and this is why we refer to this offspring as a clone. Okay? Please note down this answer. It is a very important question which is frequently asked in your board exams, and why the offspring produced in asexual reproduction is referred to as a clone. Okay, so after question number 3, we have question number 4. The question number 4 is, offspring formed due to sexual reproduction have better chances of survival. Why? Is this statement always true? So the first part of the question is, offspring formed due to sexual reproduction have better chances of survival, and why? This is question number 4. Now they're saying that the offsprings that are produced in sexual reproduction have a better survival. Now, why is it so that the offsprings that are produced in sexual reproduction have a better survival? The reason for this is because the offsprings that are produced in sexual reproduction have variances. And because they have these variances ensure adaptability of the organism in the environment and also leads to evolution. Now, because these variances are ensuring adaptability of the organism to the environment and is also leading to evolution, this is the reason why the offsprings in this mode of reproduction have a better chance of survival. Right? Because the offsprings in asexual reproduction do not have variances, because they are genetically and morphologically similar to their parents, they don't have a better chance of survival. So this is why in case of sexual reproduction, the offsprings have a better chance of survival. Now the other part of the question is this statement always true? Well, this statement is not always true. It is because in some circumstances, I'm writing it over here, in some circumstances, asexual reproduction can become better in terms of survival. But how? Now, what are these circumstances in which I'm saying that asexual reproduction can become better in terms of survival? These circumstances are when the species or the organisms do not move from place to place and are well settled in their environment. Yes. So the case where the species or the organisms do not move from place to place and are well settled in their environment, this is one of the cases where asexual reproduction can also provide us with a better chance of survival. And not just this case, I'll write it over here. There's another case, because in asexual reproduction, there is quick and less time consuming production. So yes, not just when species do not move from place to place and are settled in their environment, but also because asexual reproduction is a quick and less time consuming production, which is why in this case as well, it can also provide us with a better chance of survival. Okay. So we're done with the question number 4. Now, after question number 4, we have question number 5, which is how does the progeny formed from asexual reproduction differ from those formed in sexual reproduction? Solution number 5. How is the progeny formed in asexual reproduction different from the progeny formed in sexual reproduction? So I'll just write it down over here that progeny formed in asexual reproduction and progeny formed in sexual reproduction. So yes, how are these progenies different from each other? Firstly, in this very case of asexual reproduction, only one parent is required, right? So the offspring becomes identical to the parent, whereas in this case, two parents are required. So the progeny or the offspring becomes unidentical to the parent. Yes? So this is the first difference, that in this case, because there is only requirement of one parent, the offspring becomes identical to the parent. Whereas in this case, which is progeny formed in sexual reproduction, because there are two parents required, the progeny becomes unidentical to the parent. Now the second difference is, here the progeny which is produced is genetically and morphologically similar to the parent. And thus termed as clone. Progeny which is produced in asexual reproduction is genetically and morphologically similar to the parents, and thus it is termed as clone. Whereas a progeny which is formed in sexual reproduction has variances, and thus it is not genetically similar to the parent. Okay, so these are the two differences why the progeny formed in asexual reproduction and the progeny formed in sexual reproduction are different from each other. Firstly, because here is only one parent required, and because of this the offspring that is produced becomes identical to the parent. Whereas in this case, because there were two parents required, so the offspring that was produced was unidentical to the parent. The second difference, in this case, the offspring that is produced is genetically and morphologically similar to the parent, which is why it is termed as a clone. But in the case of sexual reproduction, the progeny has variances and thus it is not genetically similar to the parent. And obviously, which is why it is not called a clone. So this was all in question number 5. Now after question number 5, we have question number 6. Now the question number 6 is, distinguish between sexual and asexual reproduction. Okay, and the second part of the question is, why is vegetative reproduction also considered as a type of asexual reproduction? Okay, so the first part of the question is solution number 6. Differentiate between sexual and asexual reproduction. So I'll just make a table so that it is easier to understand. Sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Alright. So what is the difference between these two? The first and the foremost difference between these two is, in this case, two parents are required. Whereas in asexual reproduction, only one parent is required. Point number 2. In sexual reproduction, it involves fusion of male and male and female gamete, whereas in asexual reproduction it does not involve any fusion of gametes, right? Now point number 3, sexual reproduction is time and energy taking. Whereas asexual reproduction is quick and does not require much energy and doesn't require point number 4, the offspring produced in sexual reproduction is unidentical unidentical to the parent, whereas in this case the offspring produced is identical to the parent. And the fifth and the last point of difference, it is there, which means it means sexual reproduction, it is there in plants, whereas asexual reproduction is mostly in fungi and algae. These can be taken as the example, the fifth point. So yes, these are the points of difference between sexual and asexual reproduction. The first point is, in sexual reproduction, two parents are required, whereas in asexual reproduction, as we know, only one parent is required. In sexual reproduction, it involves fusion of male and female gametes, whereas in asexual reproduction, it does not involve any fusion of gametes. In sexual reproduction is time and energy taking or consuming, whereas asexual reproduction is quick and doesn't require much energy. Fourth point, offspring produced in sexual reproduction is unidentical to the parent, whereas here we are saying unidentical in terms of its genes, genetically unidentical. Whereas you can write it down over here, genetically unidentical. Whereas in the case of asexual reproduction, the offspring produced is identical to the parent, identical in terms of genetically plus morphologically. Okay. And fifth point, it is there in plants and mostly in all animals, whereas asexual reproduction is in lower plants and animals like fungi and algae. Okay. So these are the 5 points of difference between sexual and asexual reproduction. Now the next part of the question is, why is vegetative reproduction also considered as a type of asexual reproduction? So I am just rubbing this off to tell you the second part of the question, which is, why is vegetative reproduction referred to as a type of asexual reproduction? Yes, so why is vegetative reproduction referred to as or considered as a type of asexual reproduction? First of all, what is vegetative reproduction? It is the process. It is the process of producing new plants without any seeds or spores. So I'm saying that vegetative reproduction is the process of producing new plants without any seeds or spores, then how are the plants going to grow if there are no seeds and spores? Well, in vegetative production, the new plants that are produced grow by the vegetative propagules. Vegetative propagules, or commonly known as vegetative structures. Some of the examples of the vegetative structures are rhizome, tuber, bulb, eyes, etc. Yes, so vegetative production is the process of producing new plants without any seeds or spores. So the new plants are produced by the vegetative propagules or the vegetative structures, some of whose examples are rhizome, tuber, bulb, eyes, etc. Now, I told you what is vegetative production, but I haven't answered our question why we call vegetative reproduction as, why is it considered as a type of asexual reproduction? The reason for this is because vegetative reproduction does not involve two parents. So does it involve two parents? No, it does not involve two parents. And because it does not involve two parents, it is referred to as a mode of asexual reproduction. Here also, the plants that are produced are genetically and morphologically similar to the parent because two parents were not required at all. Now, because two parents are not required at all, why can I not call vegetative reproduction as a part of asexual reproduction? So I think this answers your question. Why is vegetative reproduction considered as a type or a part of asexual reproduction? Now question number 7. Well, it is a similar question like it's a similar question to question number 6. It's asking what is vegetative reproduction or vegetative propagation, and give 2 suitable examples. Well, like in question number 6, I just told you what is vegetative reproduction. Well, it's even called vegetative propagation. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. Because here are vegetative propagules involved, that is why do not use the term vegetative reproduction but use vegetative propagation. Yes, so question number 7 again asks what is vegetative propagation. So I guess we all know what is vegetative propagation. It is the process of producing new plants without seeds or spores. So how is it done? By the vegetative propagules, right? Or commonly called as vegetative structures. Now we have to give 2 suitable examples of the vegetative propagation. First, I am taking the example of eyes of potato. The first example is eyes of potato. Well, I'm going to draw potato first. Okay. You must have seen such dots on potato and you know these are basically buds of potato from where new plants are rising. So if I cut off this eye, these new buds are called eyes, okay? So if I cut off these plants from this potato and grow it in a soil, it will give rise to new plants, okay? So the eyes of potato is the first example under vegetative propagation. The second example is leaves of bryophyllum. Well, well, this is a leaf of a bryophyllum. On the margin of the leaf of the bryophyllum, here are these small leaves, right? So these leaves are also the buds of the bryophyllum, and these leaves can be cut out or taken out from here and can be grown in soil to give rise to a new plant. This is why this becomes an example of vegetative propagation, because here as the eyes are the vegetative propagules, in this case also the leaves are the vegetative propagules of bryophyllum and eyes are of that of the potato, right? This is all in question number 7. Now after question number 7, we have question number 8, which is define juvenile phase, reproductive phase and senescent phase. So to define what is juvenile phase. Okay, so what according to you is a juvenile phase? Well, the word juvenile itself gives you a hint that it may be something in which the organism, it may be the phase or the period in which the organism is basically getting developed. So yes, the juvenile phase is the period of growth, period of growth of the organism before it is sexually mature. So yes, juvenile phase is the period of growth of organism from birth to when when it is sexually mature. So yes, if we talk of humans, then when the child was born, when it was 0 years old, till the time of 13, which we usually call as a teenage age, this time is known as the juvenile phase, because before this the organism is not sexually mature, right? Now the second phase is the reproductive phase. It is the phase when the organism can sexually produce sexually. So this is the phase when the organism can produce sexually. And the third and last phase is senescent phase. This is the phase when the organism is getting old, and eventually or sadly dies. Right? So these are three phases of an organism. First is juvenile phase, then is the reproductive phase, and the third is the senescent phase. Juvenile phase is a period of growth of the organism from birth to when it is sexually mature. Reproductive phase is when the organism can produce sexually and can reproduce sexually. And the senescent phase is the phase when the organism is getting old and the organism eventually dies. And of course, it also loses the ability to reproduce. Loses the ability to reproduce. In senescent phase, the organism loses the ability to reproduce. So this was all under question number 8. Now after question number 8, we have question number 9 of your NCERT textbooks, which is higher organisms have resorted to sexual reproduction in spite of its complexity. Why? So they are saying that even that we know that sexual reproduction is more complex, even then the higher organisms have shifted their mode of reproduction, to sexual reproduction. Why? Well, this is similar to what we discussed in question number 2 and probably in question number 3 or 4, is because sexual reproduction, despite being complex, in nature, gives variances or provides us with these variances. Now, because of these variances, as we studied before, adaptability and evolution is ensured. Now, because of these variances, adaptability and evolution are being ensured, why won't the higher organisms shift their mode of reproduction to sexual reproduction? Right, so because in sexual reproduction, despite of its nature, of its complex nature, it's still being used is because it is ensuring these two things, and because these two things are ensured, it will eventually ensure that the species will be able to survive and not get extinct, right? So this is the reason why sexual reproduction, you can then expand it in your words if you want, while sexual reproduction, despite being complex in nature, is still resorted by higher organisms. Now after question number 9, we have question number 10, which is explain why meiosis and gametogenesis are always interlinked. So discuss why meiosis and gametogenesis are always linked. This is the question, right? So before we answer our question of why they are linked, first we have to know what these two things are. So what is meiosis? It is the process of reduction, division of the genetic material, which means whatever the genetic material would be present, it is the process by which somehow the genetic material will get reduced. Whereas, what is gametogenesis? Gametogenesis is the process of producing gametes. Yes. Now, how are these two processes interlinked? Well, as we are saying that in meiosis there is something like division that takes place. Now, I wonder why this reduction division takes place. Well, it is because the gametes that are produced from the mother cell, right, are haploid in nature. So what if they are haploid in nature? Why are they interlinked to meiosis? So it is because the mother cell was diploid in nature, which means whatever chromosome number the gamete has, the mother cell had double of it. So how do I produce gametes from a mother whose chromosome number is double of that of the gametes that are produced? So I have to have a process by which the mother cell chromosome number is being reduced to half, right? Now for this process I will use, for doing this I will use the process of meiosis. So I think it is pretty understood why meiosis is interlinked to gametogenesis. It is because by the process of meiosis, the chromosome number of the mother cell is reduced to half. Because it is reduced to half, it gives rise to, or the process of gametogenesis, in which the gametes are haploid. So basically we are going from 2n to n, and the way that we're using is meiosis plus gametogenesis. So if meiosis is not done, how would the gametes be produced? That's why gametogenesis needs meiosis, because gametes cannot be 2n, and because gametes cannot be 2n, the meiosis process is required. Okay, so this is the reason why meiosis and gametogenesis is linked, are always interlinked. So that's all with question number 10 of your textbook. And this is a very easy chapter. It doesn't require much of your mental ability. All it requires is a little logic, and almost all the questions and answers are interlinked, so there's nothing to worry about. So yes, after question number 10 we have question number 11, which is identify each part in a flowering plant and write whether it is haploid and or diploid. So here are few parts that are given. These are 6 of them. The first one is question number 11. The first one is ovary, and the next one is anther, and there is egg, then there is pollen, and then there is male gamete, and the last one is zygote. So basically we are being asked to identify whether whatever the part of the plant is haploid with N or diploid, that is 2N. So ovary, what do you think ovary is? Ovary is diploid. Okay. Anther is diploid. The egg will be haploid. Why? Because they have went through process of meiosis and gametogenesis. Means there was a reduction division. Pollen, it is also haploid. Because pollen is nothing but the male gamete only. Male gamete is also haploid. The zygote, very important, is diploid. Why? Because the zygote is formed by the fusion of the two gametes, male and female. Now, if there is a fusion, it means it would be N plus N, egg plus pollen. N plus N will lead to 2N, and 2N means diploid. Thus, the zygote is diploid in nature. So this was a very easy question. So after question number 11, we have question number 12, which says define external fertilization and mention its disadvantages. Question number 12, define external fertilization and then mention its disadvantages that we'll mention later. Okay, so what is external fertilization? It is a type of fertilization that is taking place outside the body of the organism, usually in an external medium. Example, water. So external fertilization is a type of fertilization that is taking place outside, or that takes place outside the body of the organism, usually in an external medium. That example, water. So this is usually the case of in the case of fishes and frogs. Okay, mostly in the case of aquatic animals. So in this type of fertilization, the fusion of the gametes will take place outside the body of the organism. Okay. I use the word fusion of the gametes in place of fertilization. So if you don't want to write fertilization, you can write it is where it is a type of you can say in external fertilization, the fusion of the gametes takes place outside the body of the organism. Okay. So this is all under external fertilization. Now we are asked to write the disadvantages of external fertilization, right? Well, the first and foremost disadvantage of external fertilization is that many eggs, many eggs. Okay, these are the disadvantages. Okay, many eggs get wasted because fertilization is difficult because it is in the medium of water. The fertilization becomes difficult and thus many eggs get wasted unnecessarily. And the second disadvantage is that in external fertilization, parental care is not much given, which is why the survival chances are pretty low, because obviously the predators will always have an eye on those eggs, right? So these are two advantages of external fertilization. First disadvantage is many eggs get wasted because fertilization is difficult, and the second disadvantage is the obvious one, is because parental care is not much given, and thus the survival chances are low in this case, because the predators always have an eye on the eggs, right? So this is the question number 12. Now after question number 12, we have question number 13, which says differentiate between a zoospore and a zygote. Differentiate between a zoospore and a zygote. This zoospore is an asexual motile structure which moves with the help of flagella. Right. So zoospore is an asexual motile structure which moves with the help of a flagella, whereas zygote is formed by the fusion of male and female gametes and is non-motile. Zoospore is motile, whereas zygote is non-motile, right? So zoospore is an asexual motile structure which moves with the help of flagella, whereas zygote is formed by the fusion of male and female gametes and is non-motile. And the second point of difference is that zoospore is an asexual structure, right? Whereas zygote is produced by sexual reproduction. Okay? So these are the two differences between zoospore and zygote. The first difference is that the zoospore is an asexual motile structure which moves with the help of flagella, whereas zygote is produced by the fusion of male and female gamete and it is non-motile. And the second point of difference is that zoospore is an asexual structure, whereas zygote is produced or formed by sexual reproduction. Right. So after question number 13, we have question number 14, which reads, differentiate between gametogenesis and embryogenesis. So solution number 14, differentiate between gametogenesis and embryogenesis. So what is gametogenesis first? It is the process of producing gametes by the process of, or you can say with the help of meiosis. Right. So gametogenesis is the process of producing gametes with the help of meiosis, whereas embryogenesis is the process of development of zygote into embryo by continuous mitotic division. So the basic point of difference between gametogenesis and embryogenesis is that in gametogenesis, here the process is using meiosis, whereas in embryogenesis, there are continuous mitotic divisions that are happening. So basic point of difference is becomes meiosis in this case and mitosis in that case. Well, if it comes to define them first, and then first define them what these processes are, and then write down the difference of the basic difference of meiosis and mitosis. Okay. That was all with question number 14. So after question number 14, we have question number 15, which asks us, describe the post-fertilization changes in a flower. Okay, so it's asking us about the post-fertilization changes a flower. Right. So, 1 minute, I'll just change the pen. So yeah, the post-fertilization changes that happen in a flower. Firstly, stamens, sepals, and petals wither and fall off after fertilization. Okay. Pistil remains attached. Ovary becomes the fruit. The ovule becomes the seed which has embryo inside it. Right, and there is formation of pericarp, that is the covering of the fruit. That is the covering of the fruit. So these are the post-fertilization changes that happen in a flower. Firstly, the stamens, sepals and petals wither and fall off. The pistil remains attached. Ovary becomes the fruit, ovule becomes the seed which has the embryo inside it, and there is a formation of pericarp, which is the covering of the fruit. Well, these are the only post-fertilization changes that happen in a flower. I hope you all know what do we mean by post-fertilization. Post-fertilization means events that happen after fertilization. Okay, the points that we marked just now were the events that were happening after the fertilization was done. Now, after fertilization, after question number 15, we have question number 16, which says, what is a bisexual flower? Okay, so and the other part of the question, I'll just read it to you. First part, what is a bisexual flower? Well, the bisexual flower will be the flower which will have both stamens and pistil in it. Which will have both pistil and stamen in it. Bisexual flowers can also be referred to as monoecious flowers. Example of bisexual flower is that of hibiscus, petunia, water lily. Okay, so this is what a bisexual flower is. This is a flower which will have both stamens and pistils in it. And bisexual flowers can also be referred to as monoecious flowers. Some examples of bisexual flowers are hibiscus, petunia and water lily. So the other part of the question is, collect 5 bisexual flowers from your neighborhood and with the help of your teacher find out their common and scientific names. Okay, this you will do on your all by yourself. Now we have question number 17, which says this was question number 16. Yeah. Now we have question number 17, which says, examine a few flowers of any cucurbit plant. Try to identify the staminate and the pistillate flowers. Do you know any other plant that bears unisexual flowers? Okay, this you will also do on your own. Now the last question and the last question of your chapter is, why are offspring of oviparous animals at a greater risk as compared to the offspring of the viviparous animals? Okay. So they're asking us, why are the offspring of the oviparous animals at a higher risk than the offspring of the viviparous animals? Well, this is a very obvious and a very easy question. Well, it has a very obvious and an easy answer. It's because the oviparous organisms produce offsprings outside the body, right? They produce um, they don't try to produce, right? They lay eggs outside the body, whereas viviparous organisms, in viviparous organisms, the offsprings develop inside the mother body, develop inside the body of the mother, right? So in oviparous organism, because the mother lays eggs outside the body, it obviously becomes riskier, because there will be many environmental effects which can happen, and because of which the eggs will be at risk. Whereas for the case of viviparous organisms, because the offsprings are developing inside the body of the mother, they will not have such environmental risk at all, right? So this is the reason why the offspring that are produced by oviparous organisms at a higher risk than the offspring that are produced by the viviparous organisms. So this was the last question of NCERT textbooks for the chapter of reproduction in organisms.